it's not just about the number of bills, because any government could be accused of just packing things in to make everything look as though they're very busy.
I think New Labour had 45 in one, I think.
We had a lot, we had a lot,
Yeah.
you know, during our time, and some probably were better than others in some respects. I'm willing to concede that. Look, I think there are some issues that we've already sort of heard about that are coming up. I think social care is vitally important. I would take issue with Jeremy a bit. I mean, we increased funding by 50%. We actually gave more rights to carers, access to pensions, right to ask for flexible time. But we clearly know that more needs to be done, so we'll be looking carefully at that. But I go back to what my colleague Heidi Alexander said. I mean, we are facing really difficult times, and we're 3 years in and things haven't got better. Unemployment is still too high, particularly amongst the young and the long-term unemployed. People are finding the cost of living really difficult. And when it comes to pensions, things like hidden charges, on energy bills, you know, that bills go up while the profits are going up as well. And they don't think it's fair. And I think people will be looking to whether the government is listening to those real-time concerns that people are worried about.
Baroness D'Souza, the Lord Speaker, took over in 2011, a couple of years ago, in July of 2011, succeeded Baroness Hayman. Essentially, this role was created during the Labour years and really did radically change the role of Lord Chancellor, because the creation of the Ministry of Justice and the creation of this role as Lord Speaker really took away lots of the powers of the Lord Chancellor, which became a bit of a diminished post, really. But Baroness D'Souza, main duty of the Lord Speaker is to preside at sessions of the House of Lords and to represent the House of Lords too on great ceremonial occasions. We saw that last year, for example, when President Obama was here. We saw it during the addresses presented to the Queen at the time of the Diamond Jubilee. So it's a role which doesn't just involve chairing sessions of the House of Lords. And Baroness D'Souza will soon be joined by the Lord Chancellor. This is Chris Grayling. And I'm told that he's the first non-lawyer in this post since, I think, the Earl of Shaftesbury in 1672. I'm sure someone will correct me if that's wrong, but I think that's right. But it tells us, again, it just underlines for us again what a revolution there's been in terms of some of these ancient posts and ancient offices, because Lord Chancellor is no longer responsible for the judiciary. Chris Grayling is Secretary of State for Justice, and is here today in this ceremonial role, and the purse bearer who preceded him actually has the Queen's speech in the purse, and Chris Grayling is meant to have a peep inside just to check that it's there. Is he going to do it? Oh, maybe he's done it already. But normally there's a very ostentatious peep. Ah, yes. Oh, well, yes. Yes, have a look. Yes, there we are. Just a quick check. Well, sort of. So Chris Grayling has the speech, and that actually is the very copy of the speech that will be presented to the Queen. That's what the Queen will actually read from the throne. So a chat there between Chris Grayling and Duke of Norfolk. And a great sight for us, flanking St James's Park there. And along Whitehall, this is the Sovereign's escort, past the Cenotaph, past Downing Street, on towards Parliament Square, as the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh make their way for the state opening of 2013. That's a lovely sight. It's been a little rainy in London this morning, but it's dried up now, thankfully. Yesterday was a glorious day, but it has dried, and actually we'll have a very good view here in the studio. As you can see, there are crowds gathered behind us, but it's a very good view we have of the base of the Victoria Tower there. And we'll see the Queen's carriage arriving in a short while. It's always a very impressive moment, because not just the clatter of the horses' hooves, but also the band as well, which will strike up the Royal Salute just as the Queen passes, not here, but St Stephen's entrance, which is just about 100 yards or 50 yards maybe behind us. That's all to come. Let's have a little look inside the Royal Gallery again, just to check that none of the other processions is happening. So we've had most of them already, and the Lord Chancellor now has taken his place there. Very soon the Queen will arrive at the Palace of Westminster. We want to be there for that. And there we can just, if we just look inside, that is known as the Prince's Chamber, that room we're looking into there. That's just at the far end, there we are, that's the Prince's Chamber, at the far end of the Royal Gallery. It's at the opposite end to the robing room, so it gives you a sense of the geography of the building here. And the gentlemen at arms, another of the royal bodyguards getting ready for the procession. On the right, we have Lord Hill, who's the leader of the government in the House of Lords. And what's happening now is that we have two very key participants in the procession in state, because they will go and retrieve the cap of maintenance and the sword of state. And they will be carrying those important elements of royal insignia in the procession itself. Let's have a look outside the Palace of Westminster. Glinting armour, breastplates of the Blues and Royals and the Life Guards. Household cavalry making their way past the Palace of Westminster. Very soon, the band of the Welsh Guards sound the Royal Salute. The Queen and the Duke arrive at the Palace of Westminster, preceded by 1st and 2nd Divisions of the Sovereign's Escort, found by the Blues and Royals, and 3rd and 4th following them from the Life Guards, commanded by Major Nick Stewart of the Life Guards. All the troops on duty today under the command of George Norton, Major General George Norton, the commanding officer of the London District. Through the Sovereign's entrance, the foot of the Victoria Tower. When the Queen sets foot inside the palace, trumpeter sounding the Royal Salute as the Queen and Duke arrive. The Union flag is lowered. Royal Standard is flown above the Palace of Westminster. The Victoria Tower. The heralds now, who'd prepared for this procession earlier, we saw them, are now retracing their steps. They're leading the way for the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh. And the dismounted detachment of the Household Cavalry have been waiting patiently for the last hour or so, still in place for all of these processions. Garter King of Arms, and then we have Baroness de Souza and Andrew Lansley, Lord Speaker, Lord Privy Seal, Lord Chancellor Chris Grayling, Duke of Norfolk, Marquis of Cholmondeley, two men who really are in charge of this event. The Queen and the Duke. Very, very familiar route for both of them. Make their way into the robing room where they will come face to face with Prince Charles and the Duchess of Cornwall, who've been there for the past 15 minutes or so. And then there'll be a short wait while the Queen prepares for the procession in state through the Royal Gallery. (11:15) at the Palace of Westminster. Lieutenant General David Leakey, Black Rod. on his way to Central Lobby, where he will await the signal to summon the MPs. Everyone in the Royal Gallery facing the doors of the robing room because they're awaiting the signal that the Queen is ready. And when the Queen is ready, there will be a royal salute sounded by 2 trumpeters, and the procession in state will then start. At the other end of the Palace of Westminster, it looks very quiet there, doesn't it? That's in Central Lobby. There's the inspector who's waiting to tell everyone to remove their hats and to prepare for the arrival of the Speaker, because the Speaker's procession will make its way along the library corridor and down towards Central Lobby, and then along a short section of corridor down into the members' lobby of the House of Commons, where there should be quite a few MPs gathered, and then into the Chamber of the Commons itself. And there they'll have 2 or 3 minutes of prayers, which is the traditional start of the day. And then they'll wait for Black Rod to arrive and knock on the door. And they will think very hard about letting him in a demonstration of superiority and authority, as David Leakey was explaining to us a short while ago. So that Speaker's procession will not be too long before it takes place. The ceremonial, lots of people think, oh, it's all a bit of colour and a bit of this and a bit of that. Actually, despite all the hard politics, that some of which we'll be talking about again after we see the content of the speech, it is an important part of the success of the day, Nick, isn't it?
It is, partly because people don't often know, unless they're listening to you, what you described earlier, the powerful symbolism of that door being shut in the face of Black Rod. They tend to concentrate on the funny name and why does he knock on the door, forgetting that it is the elected representatives of the people being able to say to the monarch, no, we choose whether we come and listen. It is up to us. We cannot merely be summoned, and we cannot, as of course happened many years ago, as you were discussing, simply have the monarch's representatives come to arrest anybody who happens to say the wrong thing. It's a powerful symbol of democracy.
That powerful symbol, even in a devolved United Kingdom, where we've seen the pattern of governance change so radically over the past, 14 years, that's still an important element.
Yes, and it's a unifying element, I think. It does help bring the country together. That's one of the functions of a ceremonial event like this. I also think, by the way, if you look at the House of Lords, you see there in this ceremony the last sort of a picture of medieval England. You see the court as it used to be, the ambassadors, the judges, the bishops, the lords, and then finally the commons, all clustered round the monarch. It's an extraordinary, I think, evocation of what medieval England must have been like.
When New Labour talked so much about modernising, and I mentioned their devolving power, which was clearly part of that process, how do you square that modernising instinct with what we see today?
Well, I think part of it is about recognising that today represents the history of our democracy and how that has changed over the years as well. And for me, you know, even though the palace itself, as you rightly said, most of it was burnt down in 1834, its recreation was to keep some of, if you like, the pomp and glamour, I suppose, if you like, of the past. But also, everywhere you look around the House of Commons and the House of Lords, there are reminders of the struggles that people had to achieve democracy and to get the vote for everybody, and you've got symbols of suffragettes who came in and all that. It is a working place, but it is also a reminder of our history to where we've got to today and the modern democracy we have. And I think we can take pride in our past, but also the changes in our past that brought us to today.
I'm asking Caroline that question, Jeremy, also to you, because I know lots of Lib Dems who really, and lots of Labour people too, haven't got a lot of time for the kind of ceremony we see today. What's your view on it?
I'm a bit less misty-eyed about the pageantry than perhaps some people watching the programme this morning, but I do think it has powerful symbolic resonance. And I've shown hundreds, possibly thousands of my constituents around these very corridors, and they are always fascinated by, is this where the Queen stands for this? And where the door is knocked to summon the MPs, I always say to them, the symbolism of this is that we are answerable to you, the people who vote for us, not to the monarch. And that's a powerful and important distinction. And it dramatises that for people. And as I say, hundreds and hundreds of my constituents who I've shown round have been very interested to see behind the scenes of what is, as Karen said, a working democracy, as well as a great showpiece state occasion this morning.